Mostly, it is other people who ask us this question. We don't normally ask ourselves. You remember in Mark chapter 8, verse 27, Jesus also was asking his disciples, what do you think they say I am? He even asked them, what do you say that I am? So when he asks you, who are you? Automatically, without blinking, we rush into our names. I am X. Some have beautiful names. Some have biblical names. You know, myself, my name, Robinson, honest, I don't even know what it means. It was given to me by my mother, but I have never researched to know what it means. I know there's a story about Robinson Crusoe. That is what people associate it with. But its real meaning, I don't know. Who are you? Is it your status? When somebody asks you, who are you? You say, I'm a pastor. I'm a doctor. Or you say, I'm an Adventist. Or sometimes we let the society define and categorize us. They say, you are poor and you are rich. And some people, when you ask them, who are you? They look inside themselves. They see failures. They see pain. They see hate. They see sickness. And it defines who they are. What I'm trying to say is that this is a question of identity. Your identity. I grew up in Kenya, and I was told over and over again, as I can recall, that we were poor. And indeed, I saw my parents struggling, and that helped me to cement the idea that we belong to that poor category. When God called me to go and serve him in the theological seminary, unfortunately, God did not give me any money. My parents didn't have money. Myself, I didn't have so much money by then. And for me, that is a time I battled with this question. Who am I? When I turn to the Bible, I find an answer that really helped me to answer this question. And I will reflect with you on the text that you have read, Mr. Robert. It gives us a definition of that question. Who are you? It is a verse we read most of the time, but often we do not take time to appreciate the depth of meaning in that text. So if you'll notice, if you open the verse, 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 9, it begins with the word but. But you. Peter here is drawing a contrast with the preceding verses. And for you to appreciate what he's saying, you have to read verse 4 to verse 8. It is talking about a stone rejected by humans, a precious stone, a living, chosen stone, but rejected by many. The context here, Peter is referring to Jesus as the stone. We look around our world, wherever you are living, and we see how many people are rejecting this stone. The same way the Jews rejected him and they chose Barabbas. So many people, we read the lesson the other day. It was talking about they chose Barabbas, a murderer, a prisoner. The majority go that direction. And many have chosen to go that direction. But let me read the verse in your hearing. It says that, but you. And then it gives 4 adjectives. You are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession. And then he goes ahead and says that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. Peter is defining here the identity of the believers. He didn't say, but you are Jews or circumcised. But he said, you are chosen, set aside, dedicated, special. royal priesthood. If you go and understand what that terminology means, royal priesthood, these are people who, they are the only ones who could approach God, who could even offer sacrifices. The rest couldn't. If you talk about a holy nation, you probably know people who have tried to make themselves holy. Adventists, some of us, we are experts. And over the centuries, many Christians have tried this path to make themselves holy. And I would like to say honestly, I myself, I tried it one time. I tried it when I was doing my undergraduate, trying to make myself holy. But it was so frustrating. And many stumble with this idea of trying to make themselves or feel that they are holy. They will come to realize that it is impossible. It is impossible to make yourself holy by what you do or you don't do. And that was the problem of the Pharisees. They did everything right, but for the wrong reasons. To appear and to look holy. Every effort they made or they tried to make was just an external appearance. And sadly to say, some Christians are still stuck with this idea of trying to be holy. This idea of holiness is narrowed to externalities. As we are busy with the externals, Jesus, he was reminding the Pharisees he's interested with the internal. And it should be a lesson for us that holiness, it is not exterior, but it is internal. What comes in your mind, our minds, our hearts. And he labored to correct the Pharisees on this one point. And allow me to read an interesting verse, a verse that really changed my perspective about who God is in the Old Testament. Ezekiel chapter 36, verse 26 and 27. Ezekiel, the prophet, chapter 36, verse 26 to 27. And I will allow me to read it because it's a very precious verse. Ezekiel is saying, I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit in you. I will remove, he says, I will remove your heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh. And then he says, and I will put my spirit in you and move you to follow my decrees and be careful to keep my laws. Please, at your own time, just reflect on that verse. It is powerful and it is loaded. The text invites me to draw parallels. The prophet here is assuring the Israelites of their restoration. They were disobedient. Now he's promising them restoration. And this is what God does in redefining our identity. We who are spiritual Israelites, God has redefined our identity from a people who naturally disobey him and going against his ways, and he brings us into restoration. This verse, when I read it, it spins my head as I read it. God is saying, I will do everything for you. Verse 25, if you have time and read it, it says, God is committing to save them and wash them clean. To begin with, he saves them first, he then cleans them. Exactly what Jesus did to us at the cross. And thereafter he declares, I will exchange your heart. He doesn't say repair. I will exchange your heart. Remove your old heart and give you a new one in the flesh. This is the new creation, a new birth, a new mind, a new purpose, a new motive, a changed life. The things you are naturally incapable of doing with your heart of stone. Now, with this new heart, you can do them. Many Christians struggle with forgiveness. I know a couple of them. They cannot forgive. Some of them struggle with loving their enemies. With a heart of stone, it is impossible. With this new nature, you have a spirit that moves you to love and to forgive. It is not love here and love there, forgive here, forgive this one or not that one, but continually to love and forgive as Jesus loves and forgives. His image reflected in us. It is, when I read this verse, I realize it is by God's power that our hearts can be changed. God says here, He is the one doing it. He will move you to do and to follow His will because of your new nature, your new identity. Don't get lost. Follow me. And then Peter says, but you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation. Then he adds, God's special possession. Special. Personal pronoun. You belong to Him. You are no longer your own. Your identity is different. When you understand this truth, it will unlock your spiritual eyes. You are God's special possession. And then he says, as a result of understanding up to here, that you may declare the praises of Him who called you out of darkness into His marvelous light. This is the result. When God steps into your story or into my story, He changes your narrative going forward. You will declare or be a witness of God's goodness. When the world is seeking for peace, forgiveness, honesty, purity, kindness, they will find it in you and in me. Our lives will declare of His goodness. I hope you're following me. Once He has changed your heart, our lives will declare His goodness. When God changes or exchanges your heart, you will be a light in your corner. You will be a salt in your relationships. You will be a channel of blessings. And you cannot fake this experience. You will not fake it. When our motives will be pure, our love will be genuine, where God is moving. God is the one moving you to live His life on earth. Yeah, our lives will be a testimony of how God is restoring His kingdom here on this planet. So I ask you again, who are you? Do you realize that you're different? You have a new identity. Anybody who says that is a Christian, born again, given this heart of flesh, you have a new identity. God has done a miracle in us, exchanging our hearts from stone into a heart of flesh. And as a result, Peter is saying, the result of that, you will declare the praises of Him who called you out of darkness into His marvelous light. Who are you? Look within. Even myself, look within. Is that my experience? My prayer is that this reality may become, this truth may become a reality in each of our lives. It will change your perspective of who a Christian is. Let God change you. Let God move you to declare his goodness. It is God's business. He stepped into the picture first. He came. We didn't seek him. We didn't sit down and pray that come and die for us. He came. He made the first step. He said, he commits himself, I will give you a new heart. And I will put a new spirit in you. I will remove, if you allow him, that heart of stone. Exchange it with a new heart of flesh. And then he says, I will put my spirit in you. And then he finishes and says, I will move you. It is God who moves your being. Paul says, moves my being. He will move you to follow the decrees and be careful to keep his laws. For me, it transformed my thinking. It is God from start to finish. I have nothing to boast. I invite you to reflect on these verses. That you, special people, you are chosen. You are a holy nation. And something interesting, you are God's special possession. That strikes my heart. When I know that I belong somewhere, I don't belong to myself. You're no longer your own. My perspective of life here will be different when you understand these verses. My purpose every day as I wake up, as I experience his mercies, his grace, is just to declare the praises of him, living for him. In my studies, living for him. In my home, living for him. My neighborhood, living for him. Even when I meet my enemies, living for him. May God help you guys and help me that this truth may be realized. And let God change us. All of us, we are under construction. God mold us. And we pray that God move me to be a blessing. Move me, to be a blessing around where I am. Move me to forgive the people I cannot forgive. Help me, Lord, to love as God does. If you're struggling with these aspects, then I think go back. The new birth is the answer. Once God does the new birth, you will know it. You will know it. He gave a parable of saying that, the wheat and the tares will coexist together until the end of the time. The wheat know they are wheat. The wheat will know that they are the wheat. Because God will change. He'll move them to do the things that, humanly speaking, you cannot.